The Dukes of Dice are brought to you by Tasty Minstrel Games, Arcane Wonders, Game Toppers, Alex's invitation to SeanCon getting lost in the mail, and listeners like you.
Welcome to the Duchy. It's time for another episode of the Dukes of Dice podcast, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network.
Coming to you from the Duchy of the Duke City, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the Gateway City, St. Louis, Missouri. It's the Dukes of Dice, a podcast about board card and occasionally role-playing games. Today, the Dukes will take a look at Rajas of the Ganges in their review. Then, in a special Dukes Octuple Take, they'll take a look back at reviews of Yamatai, Flipships, Viral, and Three Kingdoms Redux. And now, the Dukes of Dice.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the first regular podcast of the Dukes of Dice in a good long while. This is episode 181, the Ganges back together. The Ganges back together, kind of like the gangs back together. Did I do this right? Am I doing this right?
I think so.
Do I say this is
Sean?
Sean?
It sounds right to me.
Do I introduce myself first? I don't remember.
You do say your name, and then I either say a very long version of the word "and" or a very short version.
That's right. Okay, it's starting to come back to me. This is Sean.
And Alex. Sorry to that one listener who came up and said they didn't like me doing that.
And then I say episode 181, then the episode title, then I explain the title, and then
Right.
Okay, I got this, Alex. I got this. So, it's been a while, right?
It's been a while.
What was that?
Nickelback song, I think?
Wow.
Anyway.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Please don't ever do that again. I'm not even joking. I will shut this podcast down if you ever sing or say their name again. This is episode 181, the Ganges back together. That title thinks this is a two-part effort. Arthur Brookine coined it, but with an assist from Tim Tix over on our BGG Guild. Tim said, the gang's back together, because, hey, the gang's back together. And we're talking about Rajas of the Ganges. So Arthur Brookine said, hey, let's throw that in. So great title, good team effort there. The Ganges back together. And yeah, Alex, this is weird. We've had a weird series of episodes. One episode where I lost my SD card.
So irresponsible.
It was really, really rough. And then another episode where you were at Dice Tower Con, sans Sean, and that was unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
Good contribution.
It was unfortunate. I could have used you there, man. I was having some Sean withdrawal.
I know.
At that con.
I know. What I found interesting was you had like a really nice moment, and then like Rory called you out on it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I was just like, wow, what a jerk, Rory. Jeez. That's fine. He only listens to every other episode, and he's in Greece right now. So
avoiding the wildfires, by the way. Rory is apparently safe.
Pretty crazy. So. And then last week was SeanCon, which was me, Ellie, and Andy. And I have to say, I have to make a slight correction. Andy wanted me to make this correction. At the end of the episode, he said, yeah, I might be Team Alex. And then he went back and listened to more episodes. Or he listened to the Rising Sun review. And his exact words were, bleep Alex, I'm definitely Team Sean.
From hearing him on the show, there is no way he was Team Alex. I was stunned when he said that at the end of the thing. I think he just said that to be antagonistic towards you. He definitely didn't mean it. There's no way. He's not part of the 15%.
No. Yeah, he's a very high conflict type player. He likes high conflict in games. So
I mean, the lit cigarette to have the person who flicked the lit cigarette in someone's face, to have that person on the podcast is a true honor. We should have really done a holding court with that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it feels good to be back into the swing of things, sort of, because this episode's going to be dropping a week early because of Gen Con. We're recording early, so you're getting back-to-back Dukes of Dice goodness.
Woo! Sean, I was just thinking.
Yeah.
How the hell did we wind up like this?
Like what?
How the hell did we wind up like this?
Oh, wow.
I'm going to keep dropping Nickelback references. It's going to be great.
Wow. Wow. I don't even know that song. Yeah, that's wow. Okay. We're going to move on.
For the record, I'm not a big Nickelback fan, but I am a big fan of trolling Sean.
Excellent.
So, I mean, this is how you remind me of who I really am.
Oh, jeez. Oh, this is painful. Okay. Hey, let's talk about some board games, Alex.
Sure. It's been a while.
Hold on. Stop it. Did you look up, did you go to Wikipedia page, Nickelback songs?
Yeah.
I figured.
Yep, sure did.
Okay.
Looked up the discography mid-episode.
Oh, that's sad. That's sad. Hey, why don't you tell me about some board games, Alex?
Sure. I feel it very necessary, even though this story is older. It didn't make it onto the episode, and I think there was a lot of anticipation for this one play. I had one play out at Dice Tower Con that was after we recorded the episode, and by we, I mean me and everyone else who helped. Thanks again to everyone who helped. It was a game that, Sean, you advised me strongly not to play.
Don't play this game. Stop. Don't do it.
But I did it.
I don't know why.
And I have some thoughts on this game, Sean. This is a game called Indonesia. It is a splatter game. For folks who don't understand why that would be potentially problematic for me, Splatter is also the publisher of Food Chain Magnate and is known for its very heavy games. Quite heavy.
Yeah.
And I strongly loathed Food Chain Magnate, and still do, to be clear. So, I had been asked repeatedly for a couple of cons by my buddy Josh, my Monochromatic Wolf buddy Josh, as well as another Josh, to play Indonesia at a con. And finally, I bit the bullet and set aside some time. And sure enough, we played. But Sean, I will tell you, the circumstances initially, because you talk about me as the princess and the pea when we're playing games, especially heavy games together. The circumstances were not ideal. First of all, it came after I got off of a booth. Second of all, the starting time of this changed, but no one actually told me. Third of all, someone dropped off the game at the booth. No one told me the game was at the booth, so we had to basically break back into Dice Tower Con's vendor hall just to get the game back out to play with. Fourth of all, what was it? Josh was playing Pax Porfiriana right before and thought it was going to end sooner, and it definitely didn't. So that was already pushing us even later. So these are all factors that were not particularly conducive to my learning environment and enjoyment of these kinds of games. But I will say this. If I'm not around Sean, I am a very patient person. I'm a very patient person with this kind of thing.
Okay.
Do you believe me, Sean?
I don't. Not at all.
Okay. Well, I was a good boy. I was a good Duke Alex.
All of your Albuquerque friends would also not believe that.
That's fair. But I've grown and changed, Sean. St. Louis has changed me.
Your lack of patience is legitimary.
Yes.
Out here in Albuquerque.
Now, I'd had some help on this. Edward from the Heavy Cardboard podcast had given me some advice in terms of, hey, what can you expect? What should you keep an eye out for? Be careful about these decisions. And so I'd had a little bit of pre-coaching from one of the best and most knowledgeable on this front going in. So that helped. All right. Indonesia is a game where you are building up companies that deliver rice around the world, spice around the world. You're building up shipping companies to move all of that product. And that's the gist of it. It's an economic game. It's a heavy economic game where over the eras, as these companies grow, as the islands in Indonesia grow, cities increase in size, new cities form, you are trying to do your best to serve the world. Whether it be, again, through rice, spice, eventually siap faji, which is, I think, microwaved meals is what I kept getting told.
TV dinners.
Rubber, oil. It's a game with a lot of stuff going on. I will say this. For as complex of a game as it is, there aren't a ton of rules. It's not a game with a ton of intricacy and little exceptions and tiny rules. It's a game also where a lot of the stuff you're doing is out on the board. So, for instance, every turn, you're going to be bidding on these new companies that come out. There are occasionally people who can force a merger. But a lot of the game is this technology track, which you will always increase by one slot each time. And you might do things like increase the number of different companies you can have, or increase the maximum size of a company you can have, or increase the shipping capacity you have, or make it so you're going to go further up in turn order, which can matter in terms of who gets to deliver to their companies first. The big trick of the game is there are companies that produce things, and there are companies that ship things. And even if a company is built right next to a city, you cannot just walk it over. I guess it's just too muddy, or cars don't work, or carts don't work, or anything. By the way, Sean, I think you could probably see this coming. That was a huge issue for me in terms of like a thematic disconnect. I was really annoyed by that. I get why it's in there from a gameplay perspective, but come on, it's right next to it. Can't I just drop my rice off right there? It's right there. Come on.
Come on.
Come on. One of the interesting things about this game is you are forced to deliver to as many cities as you can, even if doing so is a bad idea for your company, even if doing so costs you more, because no matter if you ship things all the way across Indonesia, you have to pay more and more and more in boats. And so there can be a benefit in running a big shipping company and controlling the world's shipping lanes. There's benefits in building up these big companies. There's benefits in being kind of the mergers and acquisitions person who goes in and scoops up companies out from under people. And I was told that I played a pretty unconventional strategy for a first-timer. Now, Sean, have you actually played this game?
Yeah. No, I've played it.
A couple times or just once?
Just the one time. In fact, I was playing with a group that had already played it once before, but I was responsible for reteaching everyone how to play. Rory gave it to me. He's like, hey, yeah, we played this, but I don't think we played it right. Can you learn it and teach us all how to play? I'm like, But yeah, no, I like it quite a bit.
Yeah. And what I will say is there are parts of this game I did not enjoy. So the bookkeeping parts, the parts where it sort of felt like, I can't remember the name of the game, Sean, but you remember this game that we played that I didn't like, you liked more? I think we claimed it was broken. Maybe Praetor? Might have been Praetor.
Oh.
Where you had this one component of the game where you tried to match up corners.
Oh,
and you basically sat around while someone tried to find out the best way to match quarters.
Yeah, it's Praetor.
Yeah, that was Praetor. That part of things felt a lot to me like Praetor. The logistics part of, okay, well, if I ship to this city through this one, then that one, this is cheapest. But if I do it here, I save $10, and eventually everyone's just kind of jumping in to try and move the game along and just figure out how the heck to ship things.
Yeah. That happens a lot in economic games, though, especially where there's shared interests.
Hey, that doesn't mean I don't like it.
I'm just saying.
Or like it anymore.
I'm just saying.
In any case. So that kind of bookkeeping part of things, I understood, which is different than Food Chain Magnate, which I never understood. I understood how that worked. It had the thing drag a little bit. I will say, though, I had a lot of fun. I was sort of the mergers guy. I was the one who built up enough merger slots to just come in and scoop up companies out from under people, which was a ton of fun. I ended up owning, at the end of the game, most of the world's shipping lanes, and one big Siap Faji company basically was where I was at. Now, we did something very wrong, Sean, that screwed things up, because I can't tell you whether I won or whether other Josh won.
Josh Acosta.
Josh Acosta, to be clear. Yes. I can't tell you who won of the two of us, because we didn't get the endgame rule just right. The endgame rule says that once you're in the third age of the game's played out over 3 ages, you're supposed to start separating out any money you make that round in case it's the last round. If it is the last round, you double that amount and add it to your score. Well, we thought there was one additional round after the end game was theoretically triggered and hadn't been separating out our money. And so as a result, it was unclear what happened. On top of that, because I believe we had one more turn, I held back on bidding on turn order. Whereas otherwise, if I knew it was the last turn, I would have just sunk everything into turn order. I didn't have any companies to buy or anything along those lines.
Right.
So I just could have sunk everything I had into it. And turn order proved to be hugely valuable because Josh Acosta's companies were able to deliver everything they needed to, but mine weren't. So turn order had a pretty significant effect. Not to mention, if he had fought me on turn order, he might not have been able to make another merger, which would have had a big impact on the game. So it left with a big question mark. It ended in an unsatisfying way. And keep in mind, this game went long enough. It went about 5.5 hours in that ballpark.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. It went to a point where we happened to accidentally be playing in the room where Werewolf was supposed to be going on. And so Werewolf came to claim the room, and we had to physically pick up the table and move it into the convention hall to finish playing, right about when we were about to start the third age of this. Now, I will tell you this, Sean. In the day or two after we played this, I kept thinking about that play. I kept thinking about, should I have made that last merger? What would have happened? What kind of impact does this make? And the fact that one decision in that game can mean so much is really intriguing to me. And the fact that it's actually fairly simple mechanically, even though it's Josh calls it simple but deep.
Absolutely.
And which it is. That's the kind of heavy game I can sink my teeth into more. And I will absolutely play this game again. Yes. This game, not Food Chain Magnate.
No, I know. Yeah.
But Indonesia, yeah, I would definitely play that game again. Preferably with people who know the game. Preferably with 4 or 5 players. I don't think I'd play it with any fewer than that, oddly enough. I hear that the more players you add, the shorter the play length is.
Yeah.
With this game, which is appealing to me. So 4 or 5 players, but I would play it again, which, Sean, I think you're stunned to hear, I would think.
I don't know. I find it highly questionable. I'm glad you quote unquote enjoyed your play. I don't know that I believe you.
Here's the thing.
Uh-huh.
I understood this game.
Sure.
I never understood Arkwright. I never understood Food Chain Magnate.
Ooh, God,
I understand this game. And I was decent enough at it to be in the running to win it. I felt clever. I liked the fact that it was simple, but there was this kind of emergent system that came out of the interaction was the complexity to it. Where you place the city was the complexity, and these little decisions that it's kind of a butterfly effect of a game in a way, which I found really appealing. So on that front, I would play it again, Sean. And I know that sounds weird to say, but if I know the game, I understand the game. Playlink can hurt a game, but it doesn't kill a game for me. So at the right situation, I'm absolutely playing this.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Let's play at the next con.
Okay. When are you coming out for a con?
I don't know.
Or moreover, when am I getting invited to your con?
You're not.
Oh man.
You would have hated it.
Why?
It was all dudes on a map in 1846 and
I just would have nudged it in a different direction.
Oh, no, see that's not a Sean con then. That's a 15% con and thanks but no thanks.
I guess I'll just have to keep going to every other convention.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Well,
so that's Indonesia by Splotter.
I think that's pretty interesting. I'm curious. Yeah, I'm dying to get this back to the table soon. I do have a copy of Antiquity. No one has an insert for Antiquity. I ordered a wooden insert from England for Antiquity because I hear that's like the holy grail of Splotter games. So I'm excited to get that to the table soon. So let me talk about a game I got from Capstone Games. So this was a review copy just for full disclosure. And by the way, let me say, there are two companies, Capstone Games and What's Your Game, that I will always give their games a shot because I tend to really enjoy all of the games that they make. So this was from Capstone Games. Clay sent this to me, and it's called Carthago, which is a reimplementation of Porto Carthago. This is two designers, Ralph Binaire and Bernd Eisenstein. Alex, are you familiar with Bernd Eisenstein?
That name sounds familiar. I couldn't tell you exactly why.
Well, he designed a game called Alia Iacta Est. Have you heard of that? Have you heard of that game, Alex?
Yeah, I have heard of that game.
Oh. Okay.
Uh-huh. Well, I'm not going to say it.
Oh, well, that game was re-implemented as Order of the Gilded Compass by Grey Fox Games.
Quality. Oh, wait. No, I was about to do the patch line, but that's definitely out.
Yeah, don't do that. So quick note, Alex, I'm recording in my office at the law firm, and we have overhead, what are they called? Skylights. I think I said sunroof off air.
You might have, yeah.
We have skylights. And it's monsoon season, and it's raining, and apparently the mic is picking that up. So sorry for that. But anyway, Carthago is an action selection game. There is sort of a shared rondel that has the different actions, but you're selecting your action based on card play. So everyone has a starter hand of cards that has the different actions available to them. And then there are these multi-use cards that you'll acquire that have different types of goods and also a different value of money for them, and then also the different action types. So, I'm a big fan of multi-use cards, so obviously this is off to a good start. And what you're trying to do in Carthago is score points by building these residences multiplied by the number of ships that you acquire. And then there are some bonus points that you'll get, some endgame scoring that you can get throughout the game. And so there's a couple different ways that you're going to do this, but primarily you're going to be sending goods off to the harbor to get shipped off. And then as part of that action, you might also be able to kind of send a military force out to get ships. So as you're getting ships, they have a certain value. So like, for example, it might be a 7 value ship. And when I send that ship off by fulfilling a particular good that it's requiring, I get to reveal cards from the deck until I've revealed 7 or more value worth of cards. So I might get, off an 8 value ship, I might get 4 or 5 cards, whereas off like a 5-value ship, I might only get 2 or 3 cards. Just kind of depends, and the cards range from like, I think 2 to 5 or 2 to 6, somewhere in there. So this was pretty interesting. This wasn't a heavy game. I mean, Capstone is known for its heavier games. Three Kingdoms Redux, which we'll be talking about later in the episode, Arkwright, which you mentioned. Those are all pretty weighty games, and this is more medium light. I think that this would be the first Capstone game that you would actually like a decent amount.
Yeah, I've heard as much. I've heard this would be one that would actually appeal to me.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. And I will say this. With Capstone, I've always seen their stuff as well-designed, but not necessarily fun for me.
Sure.
Which we'll talk about a little bit later on as well when we're talking about Three Kingdoms Redux.
Right. And so there's other things too. I mean, what's cool is whenever you acquire these ships, they give you certain special abilities. There are these market actions that you could take that let you get new market cards, but also let you reuse your ship abilities. There are these interesting little improvement tracks that you have on your player board that either help with endgame scoring points, or they improve your military strength, or they just give you more of these influence tokens because you're going to use these influence tokens to claim endgame scoring out on the board or to claim certain harbor positions. It is not a complex game, but it's pretty deep. I like this quite a bit. Now, I've only played this a couple times at 2 players. I haven't been able to get to the table with 3 or 4 players yet. And I like it well enough at 2. I think it's going to really shine at 3 and maybe even 4. But I'm really enjoying my plays of it. And it's really simple to teach. It's a good experience. I'm enjoying this quite a bit. So for me, it's another hit from Capstone Games.
They can do no wrong.
Carthago. Which is fun to say.
Carthago. All right, well, I'm going to talk about a game that has gotten quite a bit of buzz, especially at conventions I've been at in recent weeks. It's published by Spiel, although we saw this one at the Plan B Games booth. You could have found that there, or at Dice Tower Con. It was there as well. I think they're bringing it over here. I think so. I may have some fundamental misunderstanding of the relationship between companies. In any case,
yes.
It's an Spiel game primarily.
Yeah, they have.
Sean, what am I screwing up?
They have a working relationship together. Spiel and Plan B.
Okay, there we go. So you'll probably be able to find this one from Plan B over here in the U.S. And yeah, this is Coimbra. Coimbra is a dice drafting and placement game that reminds me in some ways, oddly enough, as we'll talk about later in the show, of Rajas of the Ganges. What you're going to do is you're going to be taking dice and then using them to acquire cards. But the dice you take and the number you take and where you place it, all that one decision is an immensely important decision because there's a lot of factors that go on. The color of the die will affect which track you are going to activate. So there's tracks that will give you one kind of resource shields. There's tracks that'll give you coins. There's another track that gives you movement, and there's another track that just gives you straight victory points. The color of the dice you take will determine which of those tracks you'll activate at the end of each turn. The number on the die will indicate where in the draft order you'll go for cards. So, for instance, if I play a 2 and you play a 4, you get to pick the cards first, but you're going to be paying 4 of whatever resource of card you're getting, whether it's 4 shields or 4 coins. So that number also affects that as well. Boy, oh boy, Sean, this thing was a brain burner, but in a really cool way, because these cards that you pick up might give you some sort of cool one-time benefit. They might give you an endgame scoring benefit. They might give you an ongoing discount. And there's plenty of different strategies you can take, plenty of different approaches. I took the run around the board like crazy, just get a ton of movement, run around the board, grab whatever I can, get those one-time bonuses, and then eventually score for one of the locations that gives you bonuses for visiting places. There were plenty of other players at the table who focused on getting a big economy going and getting points from the endgame scoring cards out on the table that you can get access to. I really enjoyed this play, Sean. I had a couple of nitpicky things with components. For instance, in my book, that board was just a little bit too crowded. It was hard to see some of the pathways between different places when you were traveling around, which made that board just a little bit cluttered. It did some things really cool. For instance, when you take a die, you put it in a little square castle that you can then kind of place out on the column or lane you're going to be drafting from. But yeah, there were a couple of like little nitpicky things. I really enjoyed the play of this, though, Sean, and I definitely think this is very much a Sean kind of game. Have you had the privilege of playing this one just yet?
No, I haven't, but I'm very interested by it. And yeah, soon as I get a chance to play it, I'm going to make that happen.
Yeah, strong recommendation for it. It might be one that when we get a better sense of a release date here in the U.S., it'd be one we'd consider for a review. Plan B has been hot. Every now and then you get this one publisher that really catches your attention. I think a year or two ago it was Renegade when they had Clank and they had Lanterns and all sorts of titles that kind of seem to hit all at once or hit in a big burst. Sort of, it felt like a coming out party. Plan B really feels like it's obviously with Azul, as we'll talk more about later in the show, with Century Spice Road and Century Eastern Wonders, and with Reef and now with Coimbra. They are big time. No doubt about it. So, yeah, I mean, the lines at their booth, Sean, that I've seen have been consistently very long, and I think there's a reason for it. They've got some magic cooking over there. I don't know what it is, but Coimbra is well worthy, and you're going to really like that game.
Cool. Looking forward to it. So, Alex, speaking of Renegade Game Studios, I got to play Junk Orbit. Have you played this game?
I've seen it, and I have not played it.
I think you will like this game quite a bit. This was designed by Daniel Solis, and you are playing a captain of a scavenger ship. This is kind of like Earth has started to kind of colonize, I guess, the other planets in the solar system. And basically you have Earth, Mars, and I think it might be like the Jupiter, the Jovian system with like the different moons and things like that. And you have those three planets in this line. And around all of the planets are these different city locations. And basically you are flying your ship around. It's kind of a pick up and deliver game, which I'm not typically a fan of, but you're flying around to pick up these cards that you then need to deliver to a particular city on one of the planets. But the trick here is that the cards all have a certain value. So if I shoot off one of these cards, which I have to do every turn, I send it 3 spaces away if it has a value 3. And then my ship is going to move 3 spaces in the opposite direction. So the central mechanic here is Newtonian physics, basically, action and reaction. And so if you're able to shoot off a card to the destination, you're going to get to score that card. Or if you're able to send your ship to the location of a city card that's in your ship's hold, you get to deliver that. So it was really interesting. And it uses this cool little serpentine movement, or I guess you're kind of slingshotting around the planets. So if you go one direction and then you're going to the next planet, you have to maintain the momentum that you have. Probably sounds a little bit simpler, or actually more complex than I'm making it seem. It's actually pretty simple. I was joking that this is high frontier light, which is very much an understatement or overstatement. It's one of the two. It's one of those things like inflammable and flammable. They mean the same thing. Is that a thing?
I guess.
Why don't you Google that? Close
flammable, inflammable.
Yeah, close down your Nickelback discography page.
Look, I have moved on. I am doing show prep on the fly. Per Merriam-Webster, flammable versus inflammable. Both words mean the same thing, but one of them is bound to confuse most people.
Ah, perfect. I thought so. Anyway, point being, this was fun. I like this game. And there's some cool asymmetric abilities that your different ships can have. Like, for example, I had a ship where I could actually deliver not just on the city I was at, but to the adjacent cities to me. I like this quite a bit. And I think it was a pretty simple game that was also fairly thinky. And I suggest checking it out. The only thing I would say is that the box is terrible. It is a terrible, terrible box. It is this, it's like a small hat box. It's a cylinder, which it annoys me when games have weird boxes. It just...
Now, wait a minute. You have a game of the con that has one of the weirdest boxes ever.
Happy Salmon?
Happy Salmon.
It's fine. Stop it. Just cut it out. It's not a cylinder.
I'm just saying.
If Happy Salmon were in a cylinder, I would be upset.
Okay.
but it's not. So
cylindrical games on Sean's won't buy list.
right.
Got it.
But no, this game is good. So I definitely recommend checking out Junk Orbit from Renegade Game Studios.
Very nice. Well, that's what we've been playing lately. Let's head on over to the news desk. All right, this week in news, as always, we look dated, but it's a big deal. We should probably be talking about it. The Spiel des Jahres and the Kenner Spiel des Jahres have been announced. In the Spiel des Jahres, you had Azul, the odds-on favorite, taking things home over the Mind and Luxor. And then in the Kenner Spiel des Jahres, you had De Quacksalber von Quedlinburg taking it over Ganz schön clever and Heaven and Ale. Sean, your initial reaction to the news.
So my initial reaction was like, hey, what's the Spiel des Jahres, Alex? I feel like,
hey, that's fair enough.
I feel like we do
I
this
just assume everyone knows.
every single time. So Alex,
fine.
what's the Spiel des Jahres?
It's the German Game of the Year award. It's a very prestigious award in board gaming.
It sure is. This goes back.
The Kenner Spiel des Jahres is a connoisseur's version of that award, meant for somewhat more advanced games.
Correct. And the Spiel des Jahres goes all the way back to 1979. So this has been
The Kinderspiel des Jahres is for kids' games.
I guess I asked for it, right? I mean,
Yeah, kind of.
all right. Well, yeah. So do you remember our predictions for the Kenner Spiel? Because
I don't know if we made formal predictions.
that's all I do is make formal predictions. I formally predict this and I formally predict that. It's my favorite thing in the world to do.
I think when we were talking about this, I hadn't played Quacksalber.
Hold on, Kenner, or did we say Kenner? No, the Spiel, just the Spiel.
Oh, the Spiel, I said I wanted the Mind to win, but I thought Azul would win.
Yeah.
I think I said that. Someone might correct me here, but that's what I think I said.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And I picked Azul to win. I expected that to win. And if you recall, we kind of made comparisons to last year's nominees. So last year, the winner was King Domino. The other nominees were Magic Maze and the racing game.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
With things and stuff.
It's a deck building game. It's light. I know what you mean.
Race to El
That's
Dorado.
right.
There we go.
Yep.
So we kind of said that this year's nominees were analogs to last year's. So Azul was King Domino, Luxor was Race to El Dorado, and the Mine, kind of being the out there one, was an analog to Magic Maze, right?
Yeah.
And so last year King Domino won, and so I think Azul makes a lot of sense that it would have won this year.
Yep. Okay. I have a story, Sean.
Okay.
I have a story to tell. So Jason Brown, Major Brown, on the Guild, came through St. Louis just the other weekend and went over to Pieces. We're playing a couple of games, played Critical Mass with him from our sponsor Arcane Wonders, and played The Mind. He hadn't played The Mind yet. And I had played it with family. I played it with my parents. I played it at conventions. I was playing it with him. We played it 2-player. We were in sync. We were on a winning strategy. At the table behind us, I noticed that there were a group of 3 women in their 20s. They pick a copy of Codenames off the shelf. They open it up, look at it for a second, pack it up, put it back. Then they grab what looks to be kind of an off-brand copy of Cranium, put it on the table, open it up, set it up, look at the rules, pack it up, put it away, done. And I'm getting antsy because I at a certain point am feeling a professional duty to come step in at this point. And so we wrap up The Mind, and they're packing up this game, and I come over and I say, sorry to bother you. I saw it looked like you were having a hard time figuring out what you wanted to play. I have a game here called The Mind. It's very simple. If you don't mind, I can teach it, and if you're okay playing with my friend Jason, I think you'll have a fun time. And they were understandably skeptical, as you would imagine, but sure enough, played it, and ended up playing 3 rounds with them, followed that up. They wanted another suggestion, played another game. I couldn't imagine doing what I did with that game with Azul. And the sheer number of these kinds of situations where I've been able to use this game with different crowds, whether it be my parents, whether it be at cons, whether it be with friends, whether it be with strangers. The power of that game, I think, will have it be suggested, at least by me, far more often. It's a far more important game in my mind than Azul. I don't think it struck you quite that way, though, has it, Sean?
I think that you're underselling the mind, Alex. I think that the mind can bring about world peace.
Whoa.
Maybe not, maybe Middle East peace. Let's keep our, I don't know. It's fine. It's a good game. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Was it your favorite to play of the three?
No, Azul.
Okay, really?
Yeah. And it's also, Azul is the less polarizing option. Like,
no doubt.
Some people are going to
and I'm not surprised it won.
The mind.
Yeah, I'm not surprised it won, but I find myself, like, Azul is a good game. It's a good game. But I don't find myself, for instance, I like Reef better. I like Splendor better. I like a lot of games in that kind of zone better than I like Azul. I think it's a beautiful table production. It looks great on the table. In terms of a game itself, I think it's sort of, it's good.
And see,
it's good.
I'll play Azul over Splendor. I put those in the same category too. And I'll play Azul. I mean, so I didn't get to play it last night at Dukes Dice Game Night, but I kind of helped set up and watch some people play it while I was waiting for another group to finish. It's a great game. I think it makes sense that it won the Spiel this year.
Okay. And I agree that it makes sense that it won. I'm disappointed because I think the mind is the one that I'm going to be suggesting and playing a la Happy Salmon or some of these other kinds of games long after. In any case. And
it's interesting that last year your personal pick would have been Magic Maze.
Yes.
And so I think you're kind of the quirky gamer, Alex. That's your deal.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I think that's absolutely true. But by the way, I will say this to anyone who keeps saying the mind isn't a game. I hope that's from people who've actually played it. And if that's the case, I'm very open to having a conversation about why people think it's not a game, but I find it the most pretentious, off-putting argument I've heard in a long time, that the mind isn't even a game. I so fundamentally and vehemently disagree with that. In any case, I'm a big defender of that game. It might be my game of the year.
I think I would agree that it's more of an activity than a game.
Oh, nonsense.
I'm just joking.
Absolute nonsense.
I'm just joking.
Jeez.
I'm just trying to rile you up there, Nickelback. Let's talk about the Kennerspiel. So Gone Shown Clever, which I got to play at SeanCon. Again, I love it. I think it's fantastic. I've called it the Russian Railroads Light. Because in Russian Railroads, you get to kind of chain all these little combo-y things together. And in Gone Shown Clever, which is this amazing roll and write game, you get to do the same. Heaven and Ale is one of the best medium weight Euros to come out in the last year or so. I think it's fantastic. And then Die Quacksalber von Quedlinburg, I own, and I've had it for like a month now, and I still haven't gotten to play it. And that's the one that wound up winning. So I should probably fix that, Alex.
Yeah, you should. I think if I had to guess, I think it will be your least favorite out of those three.
Okay.
Based on your tastes.
Yeah, and it definitely could be. I really thought Gone Shown Clever was going to win because we did the same kind of thing, analogs with last year's Kennerspiel nominees. So I think we said Heaven and Ale. So, okay, hold on. So last year, the nominees were
Exit Spiel, Raiders of the North Sea, and Terraforming Mars.
Right. And so I think we said Heaven and Ale was kind of the Terraforming Mars. The Quacksalber von Quedlinburg was the Raiders of the North Sea. And then Gone Shown Clever was the Exit game because it's kind of different.
It's not as fitting of an analogy. It's not as fitting of a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so last year, Exit won. So I was really expecting Gone Shown Clever to win. But alas, it was the other game with a difficult to pronounce German name.
So I have played all three of these, Sean. I've only played Gone Shown Clever in a solo mode. I have not played that multiplayer with other people. My guess is it'll work really well in multiplayer.
Oh, it's
but
so good.
I played it a bunch for a while on an app solo. I love that game mechanically. It's probably my favorite of the three. Heaven and Ale, I liked, I didn't love. And De Quacksalber, I have played once, but with improper rules. So, playing with proper rules, so we basically turned what was meant to be a catch-up mechanic into a runaway leader mechanic by how badly we screwed up our interpretation of the rule of this. So I don't have a fair assessment of that game. Other than mechanically, I think you'll like it the least.
Interesting.
What's interesting about this, by the way, is Heaven and Ale, already available in the U.S. De Quacksalber will be available in the U.S. from North Star Games. I think they're just going to call it the Quacks of Quedlinburg. Ganz Schön Clever, as far as I know, does not have a U.S. publisher.
Yeah.
As far as I know. And I don't know why. I don't know what it is that has folks shying away from it, because I think it's really good. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with that game. Anyway. That's not some sort of subtle, like, insider information thing. I genuinely don't know. I genuinely am not sure about that one. If folks have any thoughts as to why this thing hasn't seen a U.S. partner at least announced, I'd be open to hear it. But in any case, I will say overall, Sean, I'm not as in love with this year's Kennerspiel crop as I have been in years past, having played all three of them. I like all of them to a degree. I haven't played Gons multiplayer. That's probably my favorite of the bunch. But I don't think there's any in here that I truly love. Whereas Terraforming Mars, I think I loved last year, the year before. Pandemic Legacy and Isle of Skye, I think are both tremendous, tremendous games. Mm-hmm. And even the year before that, Elysium and Broom Service, I really enjoyed. And even Orleans was up to a certain level. But this year, I don't know. It feels like a weak year for the Kenner for me. Do you agree?
Without having played De Quacksalber von Quedlinburg, no, I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, Heaven and Ale's really good. I think Ganz Schön Clever is really good. I wouldn't go that far just yet. Let me play the Quacks of Quedlinburg, and I'll tell you. Hopefully Wednesday.
Yeah, I'd be curious what you think about that one. I'll be curious if I'm right on that one. I'll put it that way. I'm pretty sure it'll be your third favorite of the three. I don't know if you'll hate it, but I think it'll be your third favorite.
Here's the thing. I like the other two quite a bit. So just statistically, I feel like it would have a hard time overcoming either of them. Because I think I think Ganz Schön Clever and Heaven and Ale are both excellent games. So I gave Heaven and Ale a 5. Ganz Schön Clever is probably my favorite roll and write. I think I had said that Steamrollers was when we reviewed Steamrollers, but I don't know. That's tough. That's very tough. But they're both excellent. Anyway.
All right. Well, fair enough. So that's the Spiel and Kennerspiel. We'll be eagerly awaiting what comes out over the coming year or so and handicapping and trying to figure out what the heck's going on, but always interesting to watch, even from afar. And I am super stoked, Sean. I will be at Essen this year. I might be able to do a little bit of advanced scouting.
All right.
I'll probably be working at the booth too much, so you never know. Yeah, in any case. So, yeah, that's the Spiel and Kennerspiel. That's enough for news, but hey, let's talk about a Kickstarter. Sean, were you a Homestar Runner fan at any point in your life?
I have no idea what that is.
You have no idea what Homestar Runner is?
I have no idea what that is.
Would you be surprised that an obscure reference from Homestar Runner, a basically web cartoon, effectively, has now done $806,000 on Kickstarter?
No. Have you heard of Exploding Kittens?
Well, I have heard of that one. And Homestar Runner is a big deal, too.
Okay.
So this is a game called Trogdor, the board game.
That one. Yeah.
Yeah, that one. Yeah. I sent you a link. Take a look. I sent you a link in the little chat we have going on.
By the way, this is the most low-tech we've done our show notes in a long time.
We don't have show notes.
Well,
there are
exactly.
no show notes.
No, look, so you can see my show notes are on the scrap of paper here.
Oh, that's good. I don't even have that. I've been typing up, bits and anyway, we're very well prepared on the Dukes of Dice. Trogdor, the board game, is a cooperative game where you are trying to burninate the countryside. It's designed by the brother Chaps and James Ernest. It's a game based off of one episode of a web cartoon a long time ago that was incredibly popular. And And I will say, if you're a fan of Homestar Runner, how they did the parts of this campaign are delightful. Absolutely delightful. The video kind of evokes the cartoon and has Strong Bad, one of the main characters from it. The how to play video for this one is Six-Satted Die, D-I-E, from Strong Sad, and they do a playthrough video on that, but basically with the guy voicing the character the entire time. Really funny. Basically, you're running Trogdor around the board, burninating the countryside, trying to flip over all of the tiles while avoiding damage from knights, while eating up peasants. You can also set the peasants on fire to send them kind of running around the board in a fun way. And it is everything you would think a Trogdor board game would be. So if this was part of your childhood or your nostalgia, it's something you should look at. If this isn't part of that, this game will make no sense to you because basically it's about a dragon with a big beefy arm strapped to its back. And the components and art reflect kind of that aesthetic. Sean, have you seen the campaign page for this one?
I'm looking at it.
What are your thoughts as a non-Homestar Runner person?
It reminds me of season 3, episode 2 of Rick and Morty in the post-apocalyptic wasteland, where Morty has
has that one arm?
The giant arm?
Yeah.
Other than that, I have no idea. It looks interesting.
It is interesting.
It looks like a thing that you could play and do stuff with.
Yeah. There are a wide range of pledge levels for this one. There's a $40 get the game pledge level. You get screen printed wooden meeples. You can get the Burninator level with high quality plastic miniature game pieces. Those would be pretty nice. You can get $200 or more. Then Wormwood Gaming steps in and you get some handcrafted wooden stuff. Or you could back, and there's 20 people who have done so, Sean, which to me is nuts. The Wormwood Consummate level. You get a handcrafted game board, accessories, a built-in Lazy Susan, and just an over-the-top thing. But what's funny is because of the nature of the art, which is, line drawings of a dragon, you have this really, really fancy-looking board and hand-carved and all of this gorgeous stuff. And it's just this line drawing that like a fourth grader would do. It just the consummate tier made me chuckle because of that. In any case, I am hesitant on this one because I don't know if there's enough game for that amount of money, but it's such a part of my childhood, I might end up jumping on anyway. Certainly more than enough people have. Sean, does this have any appeal to you?
Yeah, I already backed it.
What?
No, I'm just joking. I didn't do that.
What?
I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, nonsense.
No.
Get out of here, Ramirez.
Nope.
This is one I don't know if you'll see a lot of con presence for this one, although my guess is people will bring their copies to play this at cons. I don't know, it's just so fun to kind of evoke that cartoon. Trogdor! Any case. That's a look at Kickstarter. Sean's not backing it. I might be backing it. If you want to back it, you have, let's see, until August 15th, 2018, so not a ton of time after this drops. It has already more than made its funding goal. It's got $806,000.
So, Alex, we're going to move on over to the weather desk because it is pouring right now, and there's a flash flood warning. Flash flood warning. I could say that. Yeah, there's a flash flood warning. So, yeah, things are getting crazy. I may be sleeping in the office tonight.
Hey, is it comfy? Do you have a bed there?
I have a couch, and I have napped on it once or twice, and my arm falls asleep on it. So it's not ideal. But
all right. Well, I apologize that this podcast has possibly stranded you at your office.
So that's the latest in board gaming weather, and that's our Kickstarter, and that's the news. The war lasted 1 hour and 45 minutes. No one remembers who fired first, but the outcome was worse than even the starkest of projections imagined. The simultaneous detonation of so many weapons attacked the planet on a subatomic level, scouring the atmosphere, boiling the seas, and turning forests to ash. To operate and survive in this new hostile environment, powerful walking war machines were created.
Critical Mass is a game of hardcore, heavy-hitting mech-on-mech combat. As the pilot of a massive war machine, you must head out into the irradiated wastes and face down the unworthy upstarts who dare to challenge your dominion. After all, the honor of your Survivor Enclave is riding with you. Featuring simultaneous play with mech customization on the fly, the tension is sure to stay high in every fast-paced combat until the final armor plate is incinerated.
Critical Mass is the latest in the Dice Tower Essentials line from Arcane Wonders. Be sure to keep an eye out for it later this year.
It's not a blunder if you go with Arcane Wonders. You can find all their awesome titles at arcanewonders.com.
So Alex, you're coming up in the world. You got yourself a new game table. Wait a minute, it's not quite a game table, is it?
Well, it might as well be for all intents and purposes. It's a game topper. It's a Watson model game topper. It's perfect for game night. Plenty of room for people to play. Really upgrades the whole look and feel. Turns what's normally just a typical dining room table into the perfect gaming space. So I love my Watson, and I'm sure plenty of other people out there do too.
So let me get this straight. You get the best of both worlds. You get your conventional dining table plus an amazing game table all in one.
It's like Christmas in July.
Well, that Berkey is one innovative dude, and I'm excited at some point to play on your game topper.
Well, you got to come out here to St. Louis and come visit me for AlexCon. That's Game Toppers. You can learn more about them at GameToppersLLC.com.
Hey, Alex, have you ever wondered what trolling would look like as a board game?
I haven't. I think it would be a lot like Nothing Personal, but...
Okay, well, it's interesting that you say Nothing Personal, designed by Tom Vassell, because Trade on the Tigris is a game that was designed to troll Tom Vassell about trading on the Mediterranean.
Oh, there you go. Trade on the Tigris is a brand new game from designers Ryan Sturm and Jeff Engelstein. In it, players will develop cities, trade with one another, and watch as the interactions you have will cause the sharing of philosophies between cultures. The very core belief of your city may change because of this, so you'll need to adapt and grow to score the most points to win the game.
Trade on the Tigris will have a greater release later in 2018, but TMG has airshipped in a small number of copies to be sold exclusively at Gen Con. And TMG is excited to show off this awesome game at one of the biggest conventions in the world.
If you can't make it to Gen Con, you can always check out all of TMG's awesome titles at their website, playtmg.com. Tasty Minstrel, delicious games. This week, we're taking a trip to India for a nice sail down the river. Or are we going to be building out our boards? Or are we going to be... Man, I don't know, there's so many options. It's Rajas of the Ganges.
So Rajas the Ganges is a new medium-weight Euro from Hutch Games and RNR Games. It's designed by Marcus Brand and Inca Brand, who are a game design force to be reckoned with. It has art by Dennis Lohausen. And in this game, you are using your workers, you're placing them out. Some might call it worker placement. And there's also dice that you're acquiring, different colored dice, green, purple, blue, and yellow, although orange sometimes. And this is a type of currency that you're using. Now, the object of the game is to have two different tracks intersect. So you have two tracks going in opposite directions. You have your fame, and then you have your money. Your fame is going to increase as you take certain actions, most notably building certain type of expansions for your local player board. Your money, you're going to be spending from time to time, but hopefully you're increasing that by building other types of expansions that give you markets and then some other actions throughout the game. So there are a couple different places that you can place your workers. Everyone's going to start with 3 workers. There is the Palace, which can give you access to new dice. It's also going to give you different abilities that are going to give you maybe the first player marker, or it might give you increases on your different building tracks, which might let you score more fame as the game progresses. There's also a spot where you can move up the river, up the Ganges River. So everyone has this boat, and you're able to move along this boat track. And as you move, there are these different bonuses that you can get. It might be more dice. It might be points. It might be money. It might give you points for having done a certain number of things in the game. There's also a spot that's going to let you build these expansions on your player board. So there are these 12 different expansions. There are 12 different stacks of expansions with 3 stacks per color. These correspond to the color of the dice. And they have some value on them. I think it's between like 5 and 11. And basically, you're going to be able to spend dice of that color with sufficient pips to build those on your board. And when you build them, you're either going to score some amount of fame or you're going to score some amount of money. And there's this interesting little road track connection that you're trying to do. And as you connect to certain outer spots on your board, you're going to get certain bonuses. Again, either money or fame or more dice or all sorts of different things. And then there is the market space on the board, which is going to let you rescore markets for money for those markets that you've already been able to place. And as you're doing all these things, there's all these options for these different bonuses. So as you move your fame up, you might score a bonus that might give you an extra movement on the river track. Or on the money track, if you've reached certain spaces, you might get extra dice. All sorts of little interesting combo-y things that can happen. Eventually, the game's going to end when someone intersects that fame and money. You're going to complete the round. And at the end of that round, if there are multiple players who have made their intersections, whoever has the most fame is going to be the eventual winner of Rajas of the Ganges. Did I miss anything, Alex?
No, you pretty much covered it.
All right. So what'd you think of Rajas of the Ganges?
So this is an interesting one, and I think there's a question we're going to have to answer over the course of this review, which is not whether this game is good or this game is fun. I think it's both in its own way, but whether this game is special. Because a lot of the commentary on the Guild, and I don't think it's necessarily out of place, is people enjoy playing this game, but didn't feel a need that to own it or have it, that it was special enough. And I found myself kind of in the same camp with this one, and maybe over the course of the review we can kind of pinpoint why. I enjoyed my play of this. I felt there were multiple paths to victory. I liked how the boat track was different than the money track, was different than moving up on the fame track. Building your own board had an interesting component to it. Managing your dice was cool, and there are some component choices they make in this game that I think are really nice. And yet there wasn't that, oh my God, gotta have it kind of feel to this. Now, that being said, I don't buy a ton of games myself, Sean, as you're well aware. But I think compared to, say, other titles out here that do some similar things, I'm wondering how often this one's going to come out in the future. And it has the gears turning in my head a little bit. So that's where I'll start it off. An overall positive experience with this one, with some long-term questions. Do you feel similarly, Sean?
So I think Rajas of the Ganges is fine.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
I know what that is. That's a 3 fine right there.
Yeah. So, yeah, I agree with a lot of what you just said. There is a lot of good things about this game. It is a good experience. It is interesting. The race mechanic, because you're basically trying to, make those intersections happen. There's a lot to like about this game, but there wasn't anything that really wowed me. And what's interesting is there's a lot of things that this game does differently than other midweight Euros, but for whatever reason, it just didn't hold my attention. And I think that this game probably has some broad appeal. And I think that it's probably better than I'm giving it. Well, no, I think it's good. I think it's a good game. So it's not that I'm not giving it credit. It's just that for a midweight Euro, there are so many midweight Euros out there. And a midweight Euro has to really wow me nowadays. And and we could argue what's midweight and what's like medium heavy, things like that. Like I would think of a game like Heaven and Ale. In my mind, these are of similar complexity. Heaven and Ale wowed me. And Rajas just didn't. I think it's worth checking out. I think it's worth playing a couple times. And I'm glad that I got the plays of it in. But I don't think I'm ever going to really come back to this game.
And what's interesting is I thought this would be one that that you might like more than me.
Yeah.
And it sounds like we're kind of in the same place here. And what's weird about that, too, is this used to happen a lot more when we played games together, because sometimes our opinions would influence each other. Mm-hmm. But for the past almost a year now, we've been in pretty different places for these kinds of things. And to kind of come to a similar conclusion is interesting to me. So let's talk this one out a little bit more, Sean. Art and components. Where do you stand on the art and components of the look of this game?
So what was the Dennis Lohausen game? Oh, it was Gaia Project. That yeah. I'm a fan of Dennis Lohausen. I hated the art in Gaia Project. This is an example of a Dennis Lohausen game that I think looks fantastic. I think the art is great. I think it looks great on the table. I think the components are solid. I mean, it's typical. It's your typical mid-weight Euro type components. Wooden pieces for the workers. The dice are really nice. They're translucent. They're 30 millimeter dice, rounded corners. I think it's a great production. I think it's a really fantastic production, and solid.
Yeah, I mean, spaces and iconography were all clear. I liked how the player boards were constructed. There was some minor confusion just for me not looking closely enough as to what triggered exactly what benefits. I figured it out eventually. It's a little tricky, not too bad. I really enjoyed those player boards, though, the fact that they had the multi-hand goddess who kind of holds those dice in place. I thought that was really cool and really well done. The board itself looked great. The river was a nice touch. Again, iconography clean and clear, easy to basically figure out how to play the game from this. Game looks colorful. Game looks good on the table. The boat pieces, the little wooden boat pieces are nice. Don't have many complaints about this in terms of production. I think RNR did a great job with this one.
Yeah, absolutely. So the gameplay is interesting, right? Because you're making a decision. Am I focusing on my money track? Am I focusing on my fame track? Am I doing a little bit of both? And there are different ways to go about it, because I think that you can build your player board furiously and do really well. You can also only build a handful and choose to score fame and money in different ways. And I think that's interesting. I think when you're a big fan of multiple paths to victory, I think this game has it in spades. I really do. I think there are a lot of different ways that you can choose to play this game, and I think that's a big strength of the game.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I 100% agree with you. Yeah, you can try and focus more on boats and get some. By the way, another thing that this game does that I think is something that typically would have it be a bit of a wow. There's some nice combos you can have in this game from time to time. I trigger this boat action into this, which gets me this bump on this track, which gets me another benefit that's built into the track, which gets me another. I mean, there's those moments in that game that are kind of, as you mentioned, like Russian Railroads or Gone Shown Clever, where it's that nice triggering. It doesn't happen a ton, but it happens enough to where it's a nice little satisfying jolt built into the game. And it can happen in multiple different ways. It can happen with building out your board. It can happen with getting a lot of income on the market board, which can trigger into something. It can happen with moving your boat in the proper way. It can happen with triggering some ability in the palace. So there's a lot of interesting ways that this game interacts and moves around. And from a gameplay perspective, why isn't it so exciting, Sean? I can't tell you. Yeah.
And I bet what you just said was a big part of your analysis as to why you would think that I would like this game quite a bit. Because of that combo-y nature, that combo-y aspect of the game, which I tend to really like. I love that in games. And certainly there are times when this game made me feel very clever, where I did chain. You can unlock extra workers, right? In the base game, you can unlock 2 out of 3 extra workers. In one of the variants, you can unlock all 3 workers. And so there were times when I would take an action, do a combo, unlock a worker. I'd be able to then immediately place that worker on my next turn, and I was able to unlock another worker on top of it. So there were a lot of satisfying things that this game did. And so I'm asking the same question that you just asked of myself. What held this game back for me? And I really don't know. And maybe it's just that glut of medium weight Euros. Maybe if I had played this several years ago in a vacuum, I think in a vacuum, I would enjoy this game a lot more than I did.
Let me ask you this, because to some degree, there were some amount of similarities to Voyages of Marco Polo.
Oh my goodness. Holy cow. I can't believe you just said that. Yes, I agree. I agree 100%. Go on.
Okay. Wow. I mean, that was a big reaction to that.
Well, because I don't think it makes sense to make that comparison, but I've been continually making that comparison.
I mean, that's what came to my mind in some ways. And my question would be, what is it about that game that's so satisfying, Legends of Marco Polo, that isn't there in this game? And to be clear, I like this game better than I like Voyages of Marco Polo.
Right. So Voyages of Marco Polo, I think, is excellent. I love it so much. I think it's harder. I think because it's not necessarily more complex, but I think you're having to take more effort to make things happen. And in this game, it's a little bit more point salady, which again, something I typically like. But the way it was implemented here, I'm doing stuff and I'm scoring points, I'm scoring money, and it's great, but it doesn't feel like I'm working hard to do it. And for whatever reason, when a game makes me work, I enjoy it more. Some people find games exhausting, and other people get energized from that, the brain power that goes into playing these games. And I like it when a game makes me work. I like it when a game frustrates me. I like it when a game ultimately feels rewarding because I've pushed through and I've been able to solve this puzzle. And Voyages of Marco Polo is very puzzly in certain ways. And in this game, I felt like there were 8 different ways to do the same thing, whereas in Voyages of Marco Polo, there were maybe 2 ways. I don't know. Does that make any sense?
It does. I have a few hypotheses I'm forming.
All right, let's hear it.
Slowly but surely, and they're half baked. So let's talk them through. One is that this game is somewhat in between. It's not so abstract and Euro-y to be a complete point salad game like a typical Feld game.
Okay.
But it's not so thematic because, say what you will about Voyages of Marco Polo, there was kind of a story you could tell about that game, about running around the board and visiting these different cities, and there was at least a thematic tie. With this one, you're going down the river, and you're building this on your board, but there's some flavor, but not enough flavor to really scratch that itch. Maybe it has a little bit of a hollow feeling because it's not like you're visiting cities along the Ganges, or you're not. There isn't that same level of thematic tie to it.
Sure.
So that's hypothesis number one. How does that one sit with you? Is that possibly a factor?
Yes, I think that sounds good. I think you're right. It's got a foot in both camps.
Also, hypothesis number 2. In the games I've played of this may not be a problem for you, because I can imagine you will have won most of your games of this, Sean, or done pretty well, or at least been competitive. Am I mistaken?
I won 1 of 4, but I was competitive in all of them.
I was kind of competitive in one and not competitive in another. My thought is that this game possibly has a runaway leader issue because of the nature of how and when you unlock workers.
Maybe. I would agree that it can have a runaway leader issue. I don't know that it's necessarily tied to unlocking workers. And one of the variants tries to make up for that, but I would say that and I hesitate to say this because after 4 plays, you haven't exhausted all of the play experiences. But
absolutely not.
But I feel like if you want to rush building the buildings to score fame, it can end the game pretty quickly. I don't know that that's a dominant strategy, but in the couple games I played, it was pretty strong. Whereas I felt like I was spending a lot of time building up an engine, and other players would just score points,
mm-hmm.
and then end the game.
Yeah, it's hard to know, but it certainly felt like if you get behind in that game, it's hard to get back into the mix. Which
especially
is
because,
fine.
Right, because especially as someone's getting ahead on either the fame track or the money track, they're getting bonuses, right?
They're getting little extra pushes along the way, unlike some games which employ a gating mechanism. One that comes to mind immediately would be Aquasphere, where you have to pay certain amounts to cross victory point thresholds. Or Lords of Vegas, which makes moving up on the tracks harder and harder.
Right.
This makes it easier, and it plays into the combo-y nature of it. You want to move up on those tracks to gain other combos, but at the same time, it leaves people behind, especially if you have an extra worker or two workers for another round or two above someone else. That's going to be hard to make up for in terms of the actions.
Yeah. No, I agree.
And because there isn't much player interaction, the player interaction comes from whether you take up spaces or don't take up spaces. There's not much, if any. I'm trying to think, is there any targeted player interaction in this?
No. No.
So it's not like other people can sandbag someone who looks like they're in the lead either.
Correct.
So I think that's potentially problematic or something I've noticed in my plays of this. So those are two that I came up with. I don't know if I have any more than those two that come to mind. Because I still enjoyed the play despite those kind of factors,
sure.
But it still had me thinking.
Yeah.
This one's got me in knots, Sean.
Yeah, I feel bad. And like you said, or like I said earlier, whether it was the art or the fact that there's dice that's affecting your worker placement, I made that same comparison to Voyages of Marco Polo, and they're very different games in a lot of ways, despite some surface level similarities. But for whatever reason, I couldn't get Voyages out of my head, and to the point that I'm probably going to try and play it this week or so because it's a fantastic game. And I don't know if it's part of making that comparison does a disservice to the game. Right? Like I said, I think I would enjoy this game a lot more in a vacuum. Like if this were the first medium weight Euro I've ever played, my mind would have been blown. Right? But given that there's kind of a glut of this type of game on the market, I'm just like, yeah, it's pretty good, but not great.
Yeah, I don't know. And for instance, a game like El Gaucho came to mind, oddly enough. And
okay.
Not similar, but I would play El Gaucho over this just about anything.
Huh.
I actually, when thinking about it, got a bit of a hankering and just looked it up, and sure enough, Dennis Lohausen art again.
Yep.
But I would, and I'd rather play Coimbra over this just about any day. Coimbra, I think you're going to really dig, Sean. I don't know if you'll get the sense of it's too easy, but I think better chance than not you'll actually really like that game. I would predict a 5 for that at least.
Oh wow, okay. Yeah,
that high. I think you'll like it that much. And so this one, but I think about this game and I think about, will I play it again? Is it something I'm going to have a hankering to get back to the table? And there's something that just holds it back. So I don't know. This one has us in knots. Maybe the guild can help us out with this one, Sean. So Sylvain Lacroix says, I've only played 5 games yet, so my opinion might not be as valuable. Hey, more than me, Sylvain. But I'll give it a go anyway. At first glance, I thought that the board was too busy, but the components were nice. The rules are clear and quite simple, and once you know the different areas, the board is not that busy anymore. Gameplay-wise, the game is offering interesting choices, plays well with all player counts, it sits in a light, medium Euro, something that's not always easy to find. One of the big pluses of the game is the endgame condition, not a point salad, but a race. The winner is determined when both of them cross on the score track. I thought that was really clever, and it's not something that's been done a lot. He gives it a 4 on the Ducal scale.
And then BJ from Board Game Gumbo says, I finally got to play it last month, and I liked it a lot. I wouldn't say it's a game that I have to own, and I might even turn down a play of it for something else. But it's a solid 3, and maybe a 4 for me. I would love to play it again, as I felt there were multiple paths to victory. I hope this bears out on future plays.
Phil Hendrickson says, I played Rajas once with some friends. It was interesting and enjoyable, but I want to play it again a time or two before deciding if it has enough long-term appeal to be worth buying.
And then Wiedinghan says, Rajas is a nice game and was one of my favorites of Essen last year. The mechanics were interesting, but ultimately it didn't provide enough new experiences to stay in my collection.
And then Jimmy DM90 with thought kind of after your heart, Sean. It's okay, good even, but it doesn't excite me. Maybe it's just the Dennis Lohausen art, but when I play Rajas, I find myself wishing I was playing Voyages of Marco Polo instead.
Word up.
So I would say overall, again, kind of where we are with this one, Sean, positive, but not overwhelmingly positive, and not have to have it in my collection positive. And so that leaves us with, oh, by the way, theme. How thematic is this, Sean?
Ish. Pretty thematic.
We kind of covered it. Yeah, we covered it.
Pretty thematic for a medium weight Euro.
You want to go first? You want me to go first?
I'll go first. It's a 3. Oh, by the way, we we rate games here at the Dukes of Dice on a 6-point scale. A 1 is just really a terrible game. A 6 is a great game that's an all-time contender for, a contender, all-time contender. Contender for the top 6? Man, it's been a long... Top 10?
What?
Jeez. It's been so long since we've done this.
How many times have we said this scale? Come on now.
Anyway, this game is a 3.
Someday, somehow, you're going to get it right, but not right now. Game
is okay. Not exciting. We'll play in the right situation. Yeah, I'll play this game again. If Voyages of Marco Polo isn't out, sure. It's fine. It's a 3. I think it's worth trying. If you're a fan of medium weight Euros, I say give this a try. Maybe this hits a certain thing for you. It scratches a certain itch. Maybe. I think it's worth a shot. It's worth a play or two to see if you'll like it. But for me, All right. What do you say, Alex?
I'm with you. I'm actually a little bit higher on this than you are, but not much. I'm also going to give this thing the same score. It's a 3. I don't see a need to kind of have it around. I think there are going to be other games that are going to get suggested and played more often. But if it's out and it's being played, I'm certainly not going to turn it down. It plays reasonably quickly enough. It does a lot of things right from a components perspective. It's fun. It's decently designed. And it just doesn't have that wow factor. It doesn't have that wow factor that you're going to look for to have it stand out from the crowd. And so it's going to get a 3, but I'd say a very high 3. A decent game for sure. And I'd certainly play it over Voyages of Marco Polo, but that's just me and my taste.
Boo.
So, yeah, whatever. In any case, that's our review of Rajas of the Ganges. A 3 from both Dukes, but a slightly higher 3 from Mean Duke Alex.
You are listening to the Dukes of Dice, proud members of the Dice Tower Network. For other great shows in the network, check out dicetowernetwork.com. Back to Alex and Sean for this week's Dukes Double Take.
All right, next up, we have been slacking, Sean, and now we've got to catch up on our homework. We got to catch up big time in a big way with a Dukes of Dice. Oh my goodness, I can't contain the excitement. It's an Octuple Take!
Oh boy.
Have we done one of these before? Have we ever done an Octuple Take?
I don't think so. Maybe we have. We need a podcast historian to let us know.
Fair enough. I nominate not me.
Excellent. So the first game we'll talk about is Yamatai. We reviewed this way back in episode 150, which was titled Resistance is Feudal. No, Feudal. Feudal. I did some show art for this that had the Yamatai Empress with a little Locutus of Borg eyepiece, little laser pointer thing. No one said anything. I was very disappointed. Anyway, Yamatai, Bruno Catala game. You're a big Bruno Catala fan. I like him quite a bit. 5 Tribes is one of my absolute favorite games. I think it's fantastic. In a lot of ways, this was kind of supposed to be the spiritual successor to 5 Tribes, which again is a 6 for me. Took me a while to get there, but it's a 6 for me. What'd you put 5 Tribes at, a 5?
Oh yeah, it's a 5. Solid 5.
So Yamatai, you gave this game a 3. I gave this game a 2. Hashtag unleash the 2. Thanks, Jeremy. I hated this game. I was not a fan. I really did not like this game. I would not play this again. I would avoid it like the plague.
So I said last year during this episode that I could see myself. There is a hypothetical situation where I might be able to see myself playing this game again. It would have to be a 3-player game, and there would have to be a lot of other stuff I didn't enjoy out and about, which admittedly is a narrowly crafted situation. And let's be honest, it probably should have been a 2 then, and it's a 2 now. I'm dropping it from a 3 to a 2. I have not had any desire to play this game. I've seen it and actively encouraged people not to play this game. I think that tells you enough. It's a 2. It's a clear 2. So, Guild had some thoughts to say on it, but I think Jake Bach summed it up the best. Yamatai has already sailed away. 2 derivative and just made me want to play 5 tribes instead. 2 out of 6. Yep, I think that's dead right. Well, good thing we don't have to stay on the negativity too long, Sean, because next up we talked about Flipships a long time ago.
Yeah, this was episode 151. It was our Dice Tower Con episode last year, Rasp of Con, because our voices tend to get raspy during the Con episodes as time goes on. So, Alex, Flipships, you gave a 2. You just weren't crazy about this game.
Lies.
It didn't scratch any. No. Yeah, this was like your game of the Con. It's in your top 10 of all time. You gave it a 6. I gave it a 5. I think it's an excellent dexterity game. And if we were to give it like a dexterity rating, it would be a 6. It's probably my favorite dexterity game still. I think it's just fantastic. It's a cooperative game. You are flicking these ships to try and destroy these like Galaga
works. Space Invaders.
Yeah, Space Invaders that are descending on your home planet, and you're trying to hit them as you flip the ships. There's these cool special abilities. This game is really excellent.
Yeah. I mean, everything about this game, right? From the fact that it's a cooperative dexterity game where I find most any game I play, everyone has one round where they'll shine. The fact that it's a dexterity game with decent strategy because your abilities will affect where you aim and where you fire. From the fact that it has easily adjustable difficulty, so you can make it as easy or as hard as you want it to be. The fact that it accommodates all player counts, 2, 3, 4, that it plays really well. You can play it solo just fine, too, if you really felt like just flipping some ships and messing around. It comes with a speed variant. The production on it is stunning. Stunningly gorgeous art by Kwanchai Moria. The fact that it has that box that reads Flipships both ways you flip it is amazing and really cool. And I will say, Sean, I have definitely played it in the years since, if only because I, at last year's Gen Con, was demoing this for Renegade. And my voice was worn out, and I was worn out, but I had a lot of fun. Even after demoing that con for an entire Gen Con, which, let me throw this out there, not my favorite con of all the cons, but the fact that I'm still in love with that game, even after having played it that much and done that many demos of it, is a sign that this game is not going to be fading anytime soon. I love this game. Excited to see what Kane and Renegade do for the future of the title. It's still a 6. There's no question. It will almost certainly be in my top 10 yet again this year, Sean.
Yeah. No, I'll keep it at a 5 for me. Andy, who you heard last week on the podcast, his middle son, Asher, just had a birthday. He just got this game because Asher is like going to be a really solid board gamer. It's really awesome. And so Andy texted me, he's like, hey, have you heard of this game Flipships? Is it any good? I was like, heck yeah, it is. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, very solid game.
Nice. Gil had some stuff to say on this one too. Scott Neelitz said, Flipships is simple to teach and easy to get people into. The time I played it was with non-board game enthusiasts, and they got really into it. My dog also was excited to have people's faces to lick, I think he meant, while we were shooting, which added an extra challenge. The biggest challenge is that sometimes table dimensions have been an issue. It's one of the few dexterity games that I own, and I see it coming out in the right circumstances. A solid 4 on the Ducal scale. Man, oh man, people nicking it for dexterity. Bummer. Bums me out. Anyway, it's a 4 from Scott.
All right, next up is Viral, and we should mention that Viral is by Arcane Wonders, one of our sponsors, just for full disclosure there. And this was a review copy. So this was episode 153, which was titled Duke of Hurl. Alex, you gave this game a 4. I gave this a 3. And this was kind of an odd one. We had an issue. We had a rules issue. There was Okay, so it's kind of an area control game. You are playing these viruses, and you're trying to control different organs of a person's body. And there are this really cool card play where you're moving your virus around, you're getting rid of other people's viruses in the area, and really, really good kind of like medium lightweight game. But there was one card that we were playing that it let you, or we're playing it that basically you could move other players' viruses, which was not a thing. And it was some translation issue, I think. And so we got one final play of it with the correct rules. Not the first time. We have a lot of ducal variants for games.
Well, and there was one other rule we messed up too, because we criticized the game for the event cards, which kind of came out of nowhere and you didn't have time to respond to them. It turns out you're supposed to flip those up earlier in the round and have some knowledge of what's going to be happening.
Oh.
Yeah, that was the bigger one to me.
So we're terrible at board gaming and podcasting.
Yeah. I mean, at least one of those. I think we're okay at podcasting.
All right. Well, so yeah, you gave this a 4. Yeah, and I gave this a 3. Okay game, we'll play in the right situation.
Yes.
It's a good, I mean, so for a light medium game, it's got to really wow me. And this didn't wow me, but I think it's worth checking out.
Have you played it since or felt like playing it since?
I have not played it since, nor have I felt like playing it since. But I'm not usually pulling out a light medium game. You know what I mean?
Here's the thing, Sean. I often do. Hadn't come up for me. Hasn't been a thing. Hasn't been a thought.
You don't have a copy.
Well, no, but I've had places where I've had access to it. I've been in enough cons, and I've seen it enough out there. I've been in enough situations where I would suggest it possibly. Hasn't been a thing. I don't know what to tell you. It just hasn't been a thing. So, I mean, I don't see a reason to keep it at a 4. It's been kind of forgotten for me. And I know we've misplayed it, and I think this has a big asterisk on it as a result, but I think it's a 3. I think it's a 3 based on my actual feelings of this. So,
it'll stay at a 3 for me, and I kind of liked our ducal variant. It felt like a lot of...
it was kind of fun.
It was a meaner game. Yeah, I don't know. So that was viral.
Hey, we have guild thoughts on this one too. Hey, Jesse, you tried to cut off all the Flipships praise, but I'm not going to let you do it to viral. I have integrity, sir. Sir.
So what does the guild have to say about viral, Alex?
Jesse Black says, viral is quite fun. The artwork's really charming and it doesn't take diseases too seriously. I think that's needed in order to get into the theme. Otherwise, this game would be way too morbid. In the long term, I think I'd love to see more cards for it in order to give it a little more replayability. Generally, take that style games are not up my alley, but it's pretty easy to recover in viral. Overall, I'd give it a 4 on the ducal scale.
Yeah, I think the theme is really strong with this game. It definitely, it does a good job of making you feel like a virus infecting a human body. So,
I think they're going to use that as a quote for the next box.
All right, last game in our Octuple Take is another game from Capstone Games. This is Three Kingdoms Redux. This was reviewed in episode 154, Han Bought First. And this is an interesting worker placement game. And it's really interesting because you can only play it 3 players. It has to be played at that player count. And your workers are actually generals, and they have different stats that make them better at doing various things. There's ultimately there's a bidding type of mechanic because you're placing workers out on these different spots, and then at the end of the round of placement, you're comparing certain statistics as the requirement for the different worker placement spots. And then there's also this like area control element over the different territories. And there's all these different enhancement cards. It is a really crazy, I'd say heavy medium game or medium heavy game. You'd probably call it heavy, Alex.
Yeah, medium heavy. It's in that range.
I like this quite a bit. I gave it a 4. You felt a little constricted by the nature of our scale. You wound up giving it a 2, although it was a very high 2, and you felt really bad about giving it a 2.
I did, because it's better designed than a 2 would indicate. It's just my tastes would indicate that this is lower. And it's one I didn't see myself playing again, and I said if I'd played it again or felt like playing it again, I would revise the score accordingly. I have not played it again. Now, I will say this. I do have a better access to a copy than you'd imagine for this one, Sean. There is something that happens at the end of conventions, which is potentially a lot of fun. It's typically on a Sunday. It's, most of the halls are a little slower. It's time to close up, or the hall's already closed. And publishers like to go around and make game trades. So we happen to make a game trade because my buddy Josh at Monochromatic Wolf is really into China, and anything that is remotely good as a board game that's China-themed, he wants. And so obviously this was going to be right up his alley. So we swapped a copy of a game, which I won't name because I don't want to plug it on the podcast, for that game. And my guess is he will want to play it at some point, and I will possibly be invited to it. So I may have a chance to play this again. That being said, I haven't yet and haven't had a desire to, so I'm going to keep it right where it was before at a very high 2. It's if your taste of games is like Sean's, listen to him on this one. It's very well designed. It's just not fun for me.
So I gave this a 4. I could see this being a 5 with more plays, because there is definitely a rewarding nature to this game as you learn about the different enhancement cards for the different factions. But like you, I have not played this in the last year. And part of that, it's interesting because part of it comes from the fact that it's a 3-player only game. But that's usually my preferred play count for a lot of games. So it's interesting that restriction has made it difficult to get to the table, even though we tend to have that play count a lot. Ultimately, I'm going to keep it at a 4. I think it's a really good game. I am not getting rid of it from the collection anytime soon. I just think of it now. I'm like, yeah, I could certainly give this game a play pretty soon here. I know a lot of people I played it with enjoyed it, so wouldn't be too hard to get this back to the table. It's just kind of interesting that it hasn't, but I'll keep it at a very solid 4.
Yeah, fair enough. Couple of guild thoughts on this one. Scott Neelitz said, Three Kingdoms Redux is one of the best heavy games to come out in the last few years. I love the asymmetry in the generals and the factions. The bidding added onto the worker placement creates a wonderful headspace dynamic about when you should push for what other people don't want and when you should push for a specific spot. Also, when you lose a general and upkeep costs, keep this game tense. As with most heavy games, teaching can be a bear, and AP can grind the game to a halt. Additionally, it can take a long time if people don't know when to push their advantage. This game needs more plays, but it's definitely a 5 on the Ducal scale with a possibility of a 6. Ooh. A superbly balanced and wonderful game.
Yeah, I will say the balance in this game is pretty incredible. Weeding Han says, I'd play Three Kingdoms Redux more regularly if not for the strict 3-player requirement, which I seldom encounter. The one time I did try it, it was the best Three Kingdoms themed board game I'd played.
Jimmy DM90 says, on Flipships, it's terrific. 12 plays and we still haven't won. Seems like a game with a lot of expansion potential. New powers, enemies, perhaps variable in-game objectives. Hopefully we can get some extra content down the line.
What?
BJ from Board Game Gumbo says, I have nearly a half dozen plays of Flipships. Alex taught me and my son Jack at Dice Tower Con last year, and we had an epic win on the very last ship. We still love that game, and every couple of months it comes out at game night. On regular settings, we do find it tough to beat.
All right,
so that's Flipships. It's still a 6.
Three Kingdoms Flipships.
That'd be interesting. Would it? I don't know. Anyway.
Why didn't you just say, hey, let's go back and add this in?
No, it's fine. I hope you keep it in this way, too. I'm pretty excited.
Were you too busy drinking margaritas to read the Flipships guild thoughts?
No, you just interrupted and moved on to the next one. That wasn't my fault.
No one likes Flipships.
What? The guild says otherwise, sir. I say otherwise, sir.
And I say otherwise, too. So
yeah, well,
get over yourself.
Okay.
All right, so let's run this down. Yamatai, a 2 and a 2 dropped for you. Flipships, a 6 and a 5. 6 you, 5 me, holding steady. Viral, you dropped from a 4 to a 3. I held it to 3. Three Kingdoms Redux, we held 2 and 4. Lots of holding, lots of static there, Alex. Stasis.
And the only one dropping is me. I guess Mean Duke Alex in full force because I dropped 2 games this time around.
Yeah. All right, well, that's going to do it for the episode. But Alex, before we end this episode, we have some runners-up for naming episode 181. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
That's right, and I'm going to read them all at once because we don't have show notes, and I kept them all to myself.
You sure did.
Not for Sean, it's just me. My favorite pick for this episode, and we did a Schwazi off, and unfortunately you lost Jimmy, was from Jimmy DM90 with Make It Rain. And I imagine raining spaceships into the mothership, but it also works Rain, R-E-I-G-N, by the way, for Rajas, which has a palace, for Three Kingdoms, it's a kingdom, and also for Yamatai, had a Royal Empress association to it too. So I thought that was pretty clever.
Can we just say that it was a very contentious Schwazi to pick this episode title? So,
I think you rigged it.
We did Schwazi. I held it up to the webcam, and I had Alex pick a finger, and you were not happy with the placement of one of my fingers on the phone screen.
No, the phone seemed to glitch. The circle that normally comes under your finger for Schwazi was in a different place. In any case, we did a best of three, and the Schwazi was very clear on who deserved to win this one. So, fair enough. All right, next up, Kyle Kelly with Indiana's Bones and the Temple of Doom. Interesting. This was just an interesting one. Bones referencing dice games, Temple of Doom referencing Rajas as well, and Indiana. It's all there. It's all there.
Yeah. Well, that movie took place in India.
Right.
Yeah.
Michael Farenbrook had an under the radar one, I think, very clever. 5 diatribes. 5 tribes referencing how Yamatai is similar, and 5 diatribes referencing the sheer number of games we're talking about. 5 games on this episode, though a lot more if you heard the beginning part.
A lot of games.
Yeah, Michael Farenbrook with 5 diatribes. Next up, we have Rajoctopus from John Giblin, which is a fun one. Dug that one. And referencing the Octuple Take and Rajas, so that was pretty clever. And finally, Brett Bowers with Rollin', Flippin', Boating on a River. He wanted me to sing that. So I hope you're happy, Brett. You made me sing it. And
I really want to see you in some Tina Turner cosplay, Alex. I think you do a good job of that.
Proud Mary, keep on burning. That's right. Hey, Sean, is this how you remind me how this show really ends?
All right. So that's going to do it for episode 181. The Ganji's back together. Thanks again to Arthur Brookine with the assist from Tim Tix. Until next time, this is Sean.
And also Alex.
And Duke you later, everybody.
Thank you so much for listening to the Dukes of Dice. Today's episode was recorded in the Duchy on July 26, 2018. Our theme music provided by Carbohydro M from his Prime Legacy album. The Dukes of Dice are a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. For other great board gaming podcasts, check out dicetowernetwork.com. And for all the latest in the Duchy, go to www.dukesofdice.com. Find us on Twitter at Dukes of Dice. Join in conversations on our Board Game Geek Guild. Find us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks to our sponsor, Tasty Minstrel Games, Arcane Wonders, and Game Toppers, LLC. You can learn about Tasty Minstrel Games at playtmg.com, Arcane Wonders titles at arcanewonders.com, and find out more about Game Toppers at gametoppersllc.com. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Until then, game on.